Hiya! In the spirit of New Year, New Me, I've decided that I'm going to be making a new video game every single month of this year, alongside a companion video talking about the development process. Of course, I then proceeded to find out that another channel that I watch is already doing that and will likely be doing a better job at it. But I decided to keep going anyways, because you can never have too many games going around. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You don't even know me! My handle is eSheepGames, and you might know me from... Speaking of a game and a video every month, eagle-eyed viewers may notice that it is, in fact, not January. This is because I'm pretty new to all of this. This is only the second project that I've ever made in Godot, I am woefully rusty at video production, and I had to make all of the assets that you see in this video. This is all on top of maintaining my real life, so I've been quite busy. I'll start talking about this month's game in just a moment, but before I do so, I should quickly mention why I'm even bothering with this. Not gonna lie, it's mostly because I'm super unemployed. I've been attempting to use this New Year's resolution that I forced upon myself to build up a portfolio of tiny games, so that I have something to show potential employers whilst also developing my personal skills. Hopefully, by making a bunch of tiny games, I can obtain experience working with a lot of different genres and styles of gameplay. Sure, it'd be nice if I gained a sizable online audience from doing all of this, but I'm not expecting that to be the case. Anyhow, the game. I decided to start the year with a word game, a genre that naturally includes a lot of gameplay depth by virtue of relying on the English language, while also retaining a very manageable scope. I was already starting this project a third of the way through the month, so I needed something simple to ease me into the process. I started off with a concept. It was going to be like tic-tac-toe, but with letters, and you have to spell a word before your opponent can. Because this is a word game, I was able to prototype the project in real life, which is a lot faster than having to build a prototype in code. In the process, I gained quite a bit of valuable insight about what would make the game actually fun. Remember, just because you think something is going to be fun, doesn't mean it actually will. The original concept of this game that I had in my head was kind of abysmal. It definitely needed the refinement. After I took some time to think about the game, and procrastinate on starting, it was time to boot up Godot. I drew up some temporary sprites for the tiles and logo, and started mashing things together. Take a look at what the original title screen looked like. Now seems like a good time to mention that I'm used to doing all of my textures by hand, because up to this point I've only worked on pixel art projects. What I wasn't expecting from working on something larger than a 16 by 16 canvas was that textures can come from the darndest of places. For example, this pleasant green fabric texture I use in the background here comes from me taking a photo of my couch and hue shifting it to green. Of course, like anybody would, I started with the settings. What? You thought I would start with something important like the gameplay? Don't be silly, the settings menu is the most important part of the game. Finally, I took a moment to build the UI for the actual game, as well as adding the tile objects you'll be dragging around. I made sure to draft the layout in drawing before taking the time to implement it, so that I could mess around with how it looks without having to change the dimensions and containers of a zillion different control nodes. Shifting my attention to focus on the tiles, I realized that I needed to go find a word list to power the game. I found a lovely little word list on this website right here. It was originally designed for people who want to make crossword puzzles, so it contained a handy little proxy that let me remove any, offensive language. Afterwards, I did a little more trimming to make sure the word list only contained words that fit the length constraints of the game, and I was ready to go. Continuing to work on the tiles, the word list then had to be analyzed so as to obtain the point values of each letter. While I researched how other word games did their point and bag distribution, I decided that I wanted to make my own systems, both to avoid any potential legal problems and to account for the special needs of my own word list. In analyzing the list, which I also did in Godot for some reason, I grabbed how often these letters showed up in the list and did some arbitrary math on them to figure out their point values. They look pretty good to me. While I probably could have used purely random spawn chances, the game would be more realistic if the player chose from a bag of slowly diminishing tiles. The problem is, I still don't know how many to put in the bag. I'd sooner reinvent the wheel than get caught stealing, so I began to stare at my mess of numbers until something made sense. I'll be honest, I felt pretty smart for thinking of this. And then came the spell check. Oh dear, the spell check. I had to make it functional and efficient? Preposterous! This took me a while to do, so you're suffering with me. First, I have to grab all the neighbors of the tile that was last placed, some of the math of which you're already seeing in the background. Then I have to tally them all up in order to put them into an array, then trim the array so that it only contains the tiles connected to the one that was last placed because there's no words with spaces, then obtain every valid permutation of the tiles in the array so I can get a list of candidate words, then check every single candidate to see if it's in the dictionary, only counting the highest scoring word. Fortunately for me, that was the last of the game design decisions that I had to make, so the rest of this project isn't the most interesting for me to cover. I mostly knew how to do everything, and it was only a matter of time until I completed it. And here it is, the final game. I think it looks quite nice for somebody who's used to working with exclusively pixel art. I wanted the game to feel like you're playing the game in a quiet place, maybe some sort of cafe featuring live music. The green fabric texture is meant to remind the player of a table one would see in a casino, and the tiles look close to realistic enough for my liking. I even sampled actual Bananagrams tiles for the sound effects. And you, yes you, can play this game for free on the itch.io page linked in the description. Running Godot games on Mac without a developer certification is slightly more annoying, but I did make sure that both the Windows and Mac version function properly. Before closing the video out, I wanted to take note of everything that I've learned this month. First of all, make sure to prototype and test. The original version of this game was bad. Of course, given that I only have 1 month to make each game, if I make something that I find out later doesn't work, it'd be a bit harder for me to go back on my choice, so perhaps I can't apply this lesson too immediately. Second of all, I should really take advantage of switching scenes. Yes, the entirety of this game was built in one scene. I still don't know how to do that, and it's leading to everything looking very cluttered all in one place. And if I were working on something larger than a single screen, it would probably lead to pretty intense resource usage. Third of all, I should not overuse the await function. You can't interrupt it, and the alternative of emitting and listening for signals is far more flexible, and it naturally breaks up my code for me. I had to rewrite quite a bit of the code for this game because I was using awaits where I didn't need to. And last, but certainly not least, backing up my work to GitHub. Luckily, I didn't have any incidents occur with this project, but after losing the source code for 2 Cats 2 Sentences, my previous project, I appreciate the peace of mind that this gives me. Plus, it's good practice and I should be doing it anyways. Now that you know everything there is to know about my January journey, I'm going to end this video here. I've got a February game to work on, and making this video has cut into my starting time by a few days. Make sure to press all of the YouTube buttons, and hopefully I'll see you in a month with my next project. Good night.